Hi, and welcome to the Health Begins with Mom show. I am Dorit Palvanov, your host. On this podcast, I will share insights and interviews on health, parenting, and explore the question of what does it take to thrive as women, wives, and mothers. Now, let's get going with today's episode. Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of the Health Begins with Mom podcast. I'm Dorit Palvanov, your host. I'm so sorry that I disappeared for 1 week, and the reason for that was because my kids were home for the past 10 days. So right before they went back to school. So where I live, it's Toronto, Canada. Kids go back to school the first week of September, and the week before that, all camps, all of that was closed. So my husband and I had an opportunity and a chance to spend a lot of time with the kids. And as you know, when kids are around, it is pretty hectic and almost impossible to record a podcast. So I decided to just be gentle on myself. You know, one of the things, I'm learning a lot of things through this show and through interviewing guests and experts on this show. And if there's one thing that I'm taking away from whatever I've learned, is that when it comes to mindfulness and when it comes to really just loving and being present with everything you do, is just to learn to be okay with wherever you are, and just giving yourself permission. So this week, these past 10 days, my husband and I, have just given ourselves this opportunity and really savored this, these last few days with the kids. And so now they're back. I have to say, we are, especially me, thrilled about the fact that they're back to school, because it was challenging. Like, a lot of it was fun, but a lot of it was also just managing and keeping the house clean. And when my kids are home, they're practically living in the kitchen, and I'm still working on being less controlling and less and being less of a neat freak, but it's really challenging for me. And so when they're home, they're in the kitchen all the time, opening and closing the cupboards and the fridge, and constantly looking for things to eat. Although I do have set timing for snacking and breakfast and lunch and dinner and all of that. But I guess, thinking about myself, remembering myself when I was growing up, it was pretty much the same for me. And, we eat when we're bored. And I was, I really worked on allowing them to just be bored, I kept activities to minimum. We did do a lot of swimming and biking in the park. So we really just kept it simple. It also helps you to first of all, get outside and get some exercise. So that was a great benefit for me, because when kids were home, I was my daily routine was broken. I couldn't, for me, I usually start my day with exercise. It's either yoga or I go to the gym. So obviously I couldn't do that when the kids were home. So I used the opportunity of, taking them for biking or just walking outside at the park or swimming. So I definitely did that with them, and also connected on various levels with the kids. I think episode 5, I interviewed Suzanne McDonald, and she talked about this amazing product she has created, which I own. It's called Peacemakers, which is a deck of cards, and it helps children with it basically encourages children to talk about their emotions, which I love. It not only helps children talk about their emotions, but also is a tool to help us parents to lead them and guide them through this process, which I think is phenomenal. So if you are interested, you can always check out the link. I will definitely include it in the show notes of this podcast. And by the way, you can find the show notes to this podcast over at my website. It's healthbeginswithmom.com/EP-12. That's where you'll find all the show notes for today's show. All right, so for today's interview, today I'm interviewing someone who is a coach, who is a parent's coach, and she specializes in helping parents understand their boys better and bringing out their best. So some of the things we've discussed on the show today is how do boys and men communicate, play, and listen, how boys' brains are different than girls' brains. She gave us some tips on feeding boys, also how to praise them. Also, we spoke about testosterone and how it works, and how, what are the things we moms and women should know in order to make the best use of this knowledge and understanding with regards to our boys and our husbands and spouses and our male partners as well. And also, she gave us some tools how to handle technology with boys, because I know this is one thing I know for me. I don't have boys. I have 3 girls, but my husband is definitely he definitely loves technology, so it was definitely beneficial for me. And also we also spoke about how do you know if your boy or husband is thriving. So I really enjoyed this interview with Janet. She is a very gentle soul and so loving, and I really hope you will enjoy this interview. And if you have any questions, as always, you can leave them in the comment section below on my website, or you can always email me at dorit@healthbeginswithmom.com. All right, let's get going with today's interview. Hi, Janet. Janet, welcome to the show.
So happy to be here, Dorit. Thanks for having me.
I'm so curious and excited about this talk today because I'm a mom of 3 girls. I don't have any boys. But still, I do have clients who have boys, and I'm really fascinated to learn more from you. So before we begin, this podcast is for women who are moms. And so I'm going to start by asking, who are you a mom and a wife to?
Well, not a wife any longer, but mom to 2 girls. I raised 2 daughters, which people think, now, why are you talking about boys all the time? And I raised 2 girls, but I had many, many boys in my class. I was a teacher for many years, and those boys just gave me so much food for thought. They were always fascinating and surprising and puzzling. So I really got interested in the understanding how boys communicate and play and listen. And of course that translates to men, and then it gets into relationships, adult relationships, work relationships. It applies across the board. So when we really have an understanding of each kind of hardwired gender nature, then we can just expand on that, like we'll do today.
So I find this so intriguing. You have only girls, but you have dedicated your work to just helping other parents support their boys. And from what I've learned about you from your website, is that you're coming from the educational world, right?
So, yeah.
Talk a little bit about that, how this sort of journey evolved for you.
Yeah, so it was, I taught my first grade in about 1994, and I had 10 boys and 2 girls in that class. And, I thought I was starting out as a teacher. I thought I had it all dialed in, and these boys were so surprising. And they just needed to be way more active than I was ever taught in college. Nobody told me how differently boys and girls would be in the classroom. And then along with that, I just kept hearing from moms who, maybe they were only raised with sisters, or they had a single mom, and then they had these boys, and they really were puzzled by their energy and exuberance and stamina and all of those things. And so I got really interested in brain science and understanding that we actually really do have different brains, male and female brains, and we have different interests and focuses. And so it's just been a fascinating study for the last 20 some years.
I love that you're mentioning it, because this is exactly my next question. As I mentioned, I haven't personally birthed a boy. I have 3 girls, but I have a husband who is a boy. Well, he's not a boy anymore. He's a man. But we hear about it all the time. Men and women are different. Men are from Mars. Women are from Venus, the feminine and the masculine energy. So I get it. Like you said, our brains are wired differently. So can you share some of the ways male brains are different, and what moms who have boys need to pay attention to?
There's so much here, Dorit. The first one that comes to mind is males are very task oriented, and I want to back up a little bit. Some of this may sound like a stereotype or broad generalizations, and they are. And so you have to apply each to your own husband, and take what fits and leave what doesn't. Every human being has different influences. We're all different, but there are these hardwired differences that even apply across cultures. So for males, they're very task oriented. Females are very relationship oriented. We want to know that everybody in the room is happy, and males pretty much don't care, because if they're focused on fixing that car or building that Lego tower, whatever it might be, they are super, super single focused on that, which, as mom trying to get them to come and have dinner, can be very frustrating, because they're so focused on that one task. So that's one aspect that you might be living with in your home if you have males around you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, I love that you're taking it to the world of food, because this is exactly where I want to sort of linger. So let's say dinner time. It's dinner time. Most of the listeners here have kids who are pretty young. I would say maybe 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds. So let's say it's the dinner time. We're bringing them from daycare or from preschool, and it takes some time to get the dinner ready. Obviously, what are the things that we should do in order to turn this dinner or meal into a successful one and stress-free one?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, it's looking at your whole routine, your whole rhythm of how you're doing that transition. And granted, if you've been at work all day and you've picked kids up from daycare and you're getting home, and it can be rather chaotic, but if you can think about this idea, I love this quote. It's something like, play is the work of childhood. And I think about the work that you do preparing your meal, unpacking your groceries, all of those things is actually, that's play for your child. And boys, especially, if you can enlist them to help you, that is their deep-seated desire is to be of service and to help you. So it takes a little patience on your part for 2 and 3-year-olds to be, with you in the kitchen, but get them with you. So rather than go off, go play while I fix dinner, have them with you, have them join you, give them a task to do. I have a friend who has a 2-year-old boy, and he is so capable in the kitchen. He's always got his stool right there. He's helping grind the coffee. He knows what's hot. He knows, he wants to stir whatever she's stirring. And, wow, as a 2-year-old to be that engaged in the work of preparing a meal, that's going to pay off in spades later on, because he's going to be engaged in the kitchen and be comfortable there.
I love that. Are there any particular phrases that mom of boys shouldn't be using, particularly with relation to eating? And I'm also curious, if so, why not? What exactly do these phrases trigger in boys?
Oh, that's a tricky question. I don't know. I think it's, I guess I would tend to go towards what to use, and that is, boys love adventure. So thinking about food, trying new foods as an adventure, and not trying to stay out of that place of you have to try this, you have to, you'll like this, but more have it be an adventure, and this idea that their tastes will grow as they grow. It's like, as they learn to do new things, now I can tie my shoes, now I can dress myself, now I like broccoli, and that it's a evolving thing, that your children's tastes will change as they grow.
And that's actually true with regards to girls also, not just boys, right?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
So what I hear you saying is that boys are overall very task oriented, and they really like to succeed at tasks or at things in general, right?
Yeah.
So so I want to sort of tie it into this whole thing of praise. In particular, praise around food, because I know, a lot of moms use things like, "Oh, just one more bite," or you have to eat this, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have some maybe tips? How do we encourage them to try or taste new food, keeping in mind, their developing male brains?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I think that it's always this idea of experimentation and challenge. Boys just, and relevance. I think that the more you can engage them in preparing the food, shopping for the food, growing the food, all of those things, there isn't the disconnect between how they get it, where it comes from, and all of a sudden this thing is on my plate, this green thing or this orange thing that I'm supposed to eat. So to have that connection all along the way with food, I think is going to help them be more eager to try new things.
But Janet, how I'm trying to understand how is it different than girls? Because girls also, I have 3 girls, and they also love helping me in the kitchen, or they love shopping with me, and they love growing food. I'm trying to understand, how is it different for boys?
And it may not be different for some boys, but I think it may not be different at all. So sure, it's for all children, but to recognize the activity level, I think, and this desire to serve is really important, because where the separation comes, may or may not come for your own child, is girls tend to want to be in relationship. So they will seek you out. They will come typically, and they'll want to be there. With boys, you might have to be a little more encouraging. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yes, yes.
So
I know a lot of moms tell
subtle,
me,
but
yeah, a lot of moms tell me, once we get home, they get into their Lego or their cars, their trucks. They're like sort of like they're running away, like they want to retreat.
yeah,
Opposed to, yeah, as you're right about that. As opposed to girls, my girls are like right there with
yeah,
me in the kitchen, which sometimes
yeah.
is harder to
Sure. Yeah.
to make things to get things done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, definitely, I think this is one point that we have to keep in mind, that boys have that tendency to sort of go away from us to do a task. So I guess what I'm trying to understand and realize, how do we bring them to us? How do we bring them closer and sort of incorporate them in the meal, in the making of the meal, and obviously in the eating as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just that it's okay. Go play Legos for 10 minutes. Boys and men, you might notice this in your husband, really need a rest. They kind of need some downtime between transitions. So there is that place of get home, have a little out breath, go play Legos, and then I'm going to need you to come and get the carrots out and start chopping carrots and getting ready for them.
So involving them is key, basically. And actually,
Absolutely.
I know from my husband, for example, who is a grown boy, he really likes and appreciates when I actually tell him what is it that I want and need. So is it the same with boys? Do they need us moms to be specific in the I guess with our requests?
In all things, and across the board, be specific. The more specific you can be, the better. And along with being specific is being succinct. So boys, and especially at the end of the day, they've had if they've been at school or childcare, wherever, they've had a lot of input, and their brains don't quite process as fast as the female brain typically does. We're on, our brains are going 90 miles an hour all the time.
Right.
And so be succinct, like just tell him how to chop the carrots and then stop talking. Enjoy some silence as you're working side by side together. That's actually a really beautiful thing to engender with your boys, especially, but your girls too. Of being in that companionable silence, working together. And then,
now I know why I don't have boys, because I cannot handle.
You love to talk, of course. You have a podcast, Dorit. You love to talk. Yeah, yeah. But if you allow, and this is with your husband too, if you allow some silence, then they will be more likely to speak and to begin to talk and share. But if we're always yakking, they don't have a chance to get in to our stream of conversation.
I love that.
Really being in silence is a beautiful thing.
Janet, can we talk a little bit about testosterone? Because you mentioned it before, and I remember I've read somewhere, I heard somewhere that the importance of allowing men to have a cave time. And apparently it is scientifically proven that when they sort of cave in, or when they retreat, when they just sort of want to be by themselves, alone, or with other men, this is when their bodies restore the testosterone. So you mentioned it earlier. Can you talk a little bit about this hormone and how the understanding of how it works and what it does to boys, for us moms, how we can sort of use that knowledge to our benefit?
Yes. So if we think about how we evolved as human beings and how our brains evolved, we were hunters and we were gatherers. The males were hunting, the females were doing the gathering and the nurturing. And so when males were in this extreme rush of adrenaline fueled by testosterone to be capturing this animal, hunting this animal, killing this animal, cutting up this animal, bringing it home, that took a ton of energy, right? Just extreme energy. And so the male brain developed into this ability to have a full-on energy explosion, call it that. But then the brain and the body needed to regenerate. And so the brain would go into a rest state. And we see this now. We're still hunters. We're still gatherers. We see this now in that, that 15 minutes that dad needs when he gets home before the kids, pounce on him. We see that in sitting, zoning out with the TV and the remote control. And it's basically his brain's in a rest state. And that's that time I was talking about earlier with the letting him go play Legos or go play outside for 10 or 15 minutes to just have that chance to kind of catch up and reconnect, right? Reboot. Absolutely. And so we think, the cave is that quiet time. It's that time out of our very connectedness as females, because we want to talk. How was your day? What did you do? Who did this? Questions. And he's just like, I just need some time. Just give me. So if you give your husband and your son that little bit of quiet time, it will pay off because he will be regenerated. He will be ready to reconnect. We have, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just said I love it.
Yeah. So we can back off a little bit and knowing in that backing off, he's actually going to be able to come towards us. He's going to be able to connect with us in a better way rather than we're always pushing.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And so testosterone cycles. It cycles through a lifetime. It cycles through the day, each day. And when boys are born, they have as much testosterone in their system as a adolescent male. But it dips down and then it cycles and returns. There's a testosterone spike at around age 4. And this is when many parents come to me as a family coach going, I don't know what to do. Where'd my sweet little boy go? He's aggressive. He's rambunctious. All those words that we tend to use with boys. But it's this testosterone spike and his play changes. So he gets probably more aggressive, more adventure seeking. Maybe he's hitting the dog a little bit more, but it's this internal driver. And relating it to food, parents may see that there's a real shift in the foods he likes, how the quantity of food. One mom, I asked this question in our Boys Alive Facebook group, and she said, I feel like I just have to follow him around all day in the sandbox, in the yard, following him around with food all day because he's so active. So it's really looking at the energy level of your boy and noting, especially around age 4, that this goes up dramatically. It will dip down again and level out until prepubescence, but that age around 4 is a time when parents are like, wait a minute, what's happening here? So you're feeding the furnace. You've just got to give it really good nutrition.
Right. I love it. And I really appreciate you brought in the topic of energy, because that's my next question. From my work with parents, I can tell you that the complaints I get from moms with girls and moms with boys are really different. Moms with girls would tell me that there is a lot of drama in the house, crying and whining, and I can attest to that. With boys, I hear that there is a lot of running around, moving a lot, difficulties with sitting down, focusing on the task, or in my case, it's focusing on the meal. So I was just wondering if you could give us some strategies moms of boys can use in order to help the in order to help them to be boys, but at the same time to get things done in the house.
Yeah. So yes, boys have, it seems like an endless supply of energy, and boy, don't we wish we could have some of that. It's really, again, it goes back to the idea of having them help prepare the meal, but it's also recognizing if you want your kids, boys, to come and sit down at a meal, they need to have had some physical movement before they can come to the table. So if you're coming home and they're sitting right down and playing Legos and they haven't had any activity, they've been in the car, whatever's happened before dinner time, they need to have some physical activity. So it might be go out and play basketball for 10 minutes, or run around the block, or ride bikes, or go jump. I love mini trampolines because, it's not always nice weather to be outside, but mini trampolines, you can have one in your living room and he will use it a lot. And it could be jump up and do 20 jumping jacks, run up and down the stairs, give them an obstacle course, but have them do something physical before we expect as adults that, oh, you're going to be able to come and sit still. He's moving in his body, and we have to allow that to happen before we have the expectation of sitting still.
I love that. And by the way, it's true for girls too.
Oh, sure.
My oldest especially, she's very kinesthetic. She needs to move around a lot. I constantly hear from teachers that it's hard for her to focus.
Yeah.
It's because she needs to be in movement all the time. The time. Yeah. So can you give us some examples of how it looks like to have a boy who is happy, content, thriving, and successful? Like, how do I know that my boy is having, is doing good?
Wow. I think that, we have that intuitive sense. I think there's always the place when we send our boy off, maybe with auntie and uncle, or, and we think, cross our fingers, oh, I hope he's well behaved, or I hope things go okay. And we get great feedback from people that are with him when we are not, as the parents. That's really telling that we know, okay, and that's boys and girls, obviously. Okay, something's getting through. We're doing something right here. But you're going to know your son will have shiny, rosy cheeks and shiny eyes, and he will be curious and active and engaged in the day. And I just have to put a little plug in here of what can diminish those rosy cheeks and those shiny eyes, and that is screen time. And so really limiting screen time. Boys
I
are
love that you're bringing
attracted. Oh my gosh, another whole podcast, Dorit.
Right.
The boys are, and it's a brain thing. It's their makeup of their brain. They're very visual, very spatial, and video games especially play into all the things that boys love.
Yeah, I love that you're bringing that. I love it because this is actually my next question. I know that this is one of the things boys and men love, and it's technology. And so I wanted to ask you, because I get a lot of questions from moms, is it okay for them to, watch TV while I'm feeding them, because they use that as a distraction. So I really wanted to get your take on that.
No, it's not okay.
It's not okay.
So boys and men are, it's like moth to a flame. If there is a TV on or a screen, or your phone is laying on the counter beside you, it is so compelling. It is magnetic for them. And so keep it out of their view, out of their world as long as you can. And I know, realistically, we're living in this day and age, and it will be a big part of your life, parenting your kids. Put it off as long as possible. Your kids will never ask for less. Your sons will never ask for less media or less screen time. So if you start out at age 1 or 2 handing him the phone when you're in the grocery line or you know, in the car, that you're developing that habit for him, and that habit can very easily become an addiction. And so, and that other piece of that with girls being driven by this relationship, they want to have eye contact, they want to talk with you and share about their day. Boys, not as much. And so we have to nurture that and encourage that. And just giving him a screen is way easier for him than having to talk to you and tell you about his day. Do you see that?
Yes.
That's just the easy path of least resistance.
Right.
So
right.
you have to keep that, you know, you just have to hold back the flood as long as you can.
Right. So during meal times, instead of sort of distracting him with TV and putting more food into him, what I hear you saying is that it is better to encourage him to open up, to connect, and to actually interact face to face, as opposed to, although it would be harder to do, but what I hear from you is that it's much better for the long run.
It's the warmth of a relationship. It's the warmth of interaction. And he might not say 10 words, but you're having the conversation around the table. And it's really our hearth, isn't it? It's the place that we come to, the heart of our family, is those meal times and those shared times. And the other piece I want to just add here, I tell a lot of parents this, because they'll say, you know, oh, my boy, he'll come and eat one thing and then he wants to get down, or, you know, girls too. A really lovely way to kind of hold that drawing into the table and coming together is to have your kids bring in some things from nature. Go out and collect some beautiful flowers, or maybe it's leaves in the autumn, or some sort of nature item as a centerpiece on the table. And then you have a beautiful candle. And, you know, for boys especially, to be able to light a match and light a candle, and to have this living candle flame at the center of the table, is so compelling and so heart-opening, and the warmth that it brings is absolutely magical. And so for the boy who has been, you know, maybe you've helped him light the candle stays lit as long as he's at the table. So he has to stay. And then I love those little snuffers. It's so you're not blowing out the candle and blowing wax all over the place. It's just a little candle snuffer. So at the end of the meal, he gets to put the candle out. And that's also very magical. Mm-hmm. And so it draws him into an interest that isn't food, but it's at the table.
I love that, because I know with candles especially, it creates this sort of like a ritualistic,
yes,
I guess, feel to
it's primal. It goes right into our, you know, into our primal being, into our hearts.
That's so nice. I love that. I would definitely use that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Janet. Oh my gosh, you're a wealth of information. Thank you so much. Before I let you go, I have 4 questions I ask all of my guests.
Okay.
And the first one is, since, you know, the show is all about inspiring moms to thrive as women and mothers, I like to call it being like a goddess. And I'm curious to know, how are you being a goddess in your own life? How do you take care of yourself, your soul, your body? What are some of your non-negotiables?
My non-negotiable since last October is I started a home yoga practice. Mm-hmm. And so I do yoga. I have done yoga every single day. I have not missed a day. That's Christmas and travel. And it's such a habit now that I get out of bed and I throw out my yoga mat, and it might be 5 minutes, it might be 40 minutes, but that is absolutely non-negotiable for me. Another non-negotiable is time in nature. Even if it's just in my backyard, I need to have time in nature.
I love that.
Yeah.
So what advice does your now mommy self would have given to your pre-mommy self?
Oh, and I can say, I mean, this is definitely the view of my daughters are 31 and 29. So, I'm looking back a long ways, but I tell all of the parents that I work with is relax and enjoy this time. It is supposed to be fun. Allow the fun to come in, allow the joy to come in. It's not just all about getting the laundry done.
Oh gosh. I'm trying to keep that mantra in my mind, but when you need to get so many things done, it's really hard to keep in mind.
Yeah. But part of it is simplifying. You know what? It's part of it is just have less clothes and have less stuff and just, carve out those times and enjoying the little things, enjoying that, spilled milk on the kitchen floor and not getting too bent out of shape about it. This too shall pass.
Love that. I love that you mentioned this too shall pass, because I was actually considering of creating like a bracelet and walking around with it and reminding myself. Yeah.
It goes so fast. It's so cliche, but it goes so fast, and you will soon have 30-year-old daughters and you'll be thinking, where did the time go?
Yeah. So, Janet, I like to keep it real and show listeners that even though someone is an expert in one area, they might be struggling with other things. So, what are some of your current challenges as a woman or a mother, or even a businesswoman?
Oh, I'd say current challenge continues to be just staying vital health-wise, as I approach 60, which is, I'm telling myself, is the new 50. Keeping active and making good food decisions. I'm doing a detox right now, so nutrition is really up for me right now, and how important that is, and how easily we can slide into that 4 cups of coffee a day habit, which I'm guilty of. Now I'm down to 1, so.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what's the biggest thing that you've had to let go of in order to become the person you are right now?
The biggest thing I've had to let go of is the some unrealistic ideal of what a family looks like. I don't know if you're familiar with Norman Rockwell, but he was an artist that just painted these, the Thanksgiving Day table and everyone's gathered around and everyone's happy, and realizing that holidays don't happen that way and life doesn't happen that way, and to create it with joy however it unfolds. And part of that is having your family of origin, but also having your family of choice, and gathering those people around you is really important.
Oh God, this is a topic to a completely different podcast, but I love that you just mentioned that. It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. It is so, so true. Janet, thank you so much. I've learned so much today. Before I completely let you go, can you talk a little bit about your Facebook group and how can people find you and connect with you online?
My website is boysalive.com, and we have an amazing Facebook group that I just love. So it's private, so ask to join that. You can find it just searching Boys Alive on Facebook and it'll pop up. Mm-hmm. And we'd love to have you there.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Health Begins with Mom show. I love hearing from you, so please post your comments and questions over at healthbeginswithmom.com/podcast. If you love the show, please share it on social media and in your real life with other moms who might enjoy this content. And if you have a burning question or topic you'd like me to hit on the show, just drop me a line at dorit at healthbeginswithmom.com. And if you love this show and really want to support it, please go to iTunes, write a review, and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time. Much love and many blessings.